All right. There I am. All right. So commas uh, cause many students, some trouble, right? They're problematic for a number of my students. So I wanted to do this video, kind of go through the general, whens and wheres of their use and so forth. So hopefully after this, you'll be more confident and capable comma users. Um, Now, the first thing that they do that we should talk about is they separate items in a series. Okay, so you know, I bought apples, comma, oranges, comma, and bananas. Now, there's been a movement in the last decade or so to get rid of that comma before the and. Right, that comma is called the Oxford comma, and the guidance is to leave it out unless you need it for everything to be clear or something, which seems ridiculous to me, right? Let's always use it. Okay, let's always keep that comma in there. And this is a great example of why, right? She is vice president of operations, sales and resources, and personnel. All right, so we've got operations, comma, sales and resources, comma, and personnel. Now, if I left that second comma off, right, which is what some style manuals suggest that I do, and then it becomes, she's vice president of operations, sales and resources, and personnel. So is she VP of operations, sales and resources, and personnel, or operations, sales, and resources and personnel? It's not clear, right? So let's always keep that comma right there in play, right? Always use him. It's called the Oxford comma. Don't leave home without it. All right. The other thing that commas do, or another thing that commas do, right, kind of in the same vein, is that they separate, like when you have a series of adjectives before a noun, they separate those adjectives, right? In this case, though, you don't have an adjective, or you don't have a comma between that last adjective and that noun that you're describing, that thing that you're describing, really. Okay. But what that thing is kind of up to you, right? And this example demonstrates that, right? In the first, right, this decent, affordable used car. Okay. I decide that what I'm talking about is a car that happens to be used and affordable and decent. Okay. So the way that I'd write that out is decent, comma, affordable, comma, used car, right? Now, in the second instance here, this decent, affordable used car, I decided that what I'm talking about is not just a car, but a used car. So I'm going a used car, right, that happens to be both affordable and decent. So in that case, I leave that comma off there after affordable because then that's, affordable is the last descriptor for this thing, in this case, used car. So I wouldn't have a comma there. Okay. All right. Now, we also have commas setting off quotes, like when we're narrating discourse. He said, comma, air quote, this pie is delicious, right? So we use it then when we're narrating discourse, okay? Commas follow introductory elements, right? For example, here I've got some interjections and so forth. Well, comma, oh, comma, yes, comma, no, comma, right? Um, Now, introductory elements can also, like include phrases, clauses, things like that. And most of the time, right, these things are kind of lifted from their natural place in the sentence, right? So, and I've got some examples here. I saw John after school. Okay, so there's no commas there because that's kind of the expected order of things, right? But if I take after school, move it to the beginning of the sentence, I need that comma now. After school, comma, I saw John, right? Second example, I will tell him if I see him. Again, no commas there. It's part of the expected order there, right? Um, but if we shift if I see him to the beginning of the sentence, a comma is necessary. If I see him, comma, I will tell him, right? I guess he will play, right? I'm taking, now you can think of this two ways. I guess you could take he will play and move it to the beginning of the sentence, or you can think of it like I guess moving to the end of the sentence. Either way, you've got that comma there separating them. He will play, I guess. Okay. So anytime you manipulate the order like that, you do need a comma to kind of set that apart. All right. Now, as far as setting things apart, commas set apart parenthetical information or extra information for moderate or medium emphasis. Okay. If there's information that isn't necessary, right, for the reader to understand the meaning, the full meaning of the sentence, okay, then that's called extra information, right? So there's information that's not needed, right? We need to separate that information somehow. Okay, we've got three things available to us. Parentheses we use for stuff that's kind of hardly worth mentioning, right? Commas for that middle ground. Uh, like it's important enough. I mean, I'm not going to hide it away in parentheses, but I'm not really going to try to overly emphasize it either. Okay, we use commas for that. And then the last way is really to emphasize that extra information. We use em dashes for that. We'll see some examples there in the video on that. All right. When we join two independent clauses there with a coordinating conjunction, we use a comma for that. Okay. We use a comma to separate direct address. So, it's nice to see you, Steve. Right? It's nice to see you, comma, Steve. We use commas for very mundane things, to separate like, month and day from the year and city from state and all that. If you're typing up a personal letter or an email, I guess in this day and age, um, Susan, comma, and then the body of your email or letter. If you happen to have, like credentials or something like that, you have a degree or whatever that's included at the end. So you'd have like John Quincy, comma, MD. Okay. But okay, so the kind of nuancy, exciting, juicy stuff here. Uh, Parenthetical information. Let's look at that. Some examples here. Okay. Lulu didn't get that tattoo, comma, because it was in bad taste. Right. That conveys that Lulu didn't get the tattoo. Cool, right? Because she found it in bad taste. Okay, that's kind of extra information. All right. I take that comma out though. Lulu didn't get that tattoo because it was in bad taste. Okay, there was some other reason that besides it being in bad taste that she didn't get the tattoo. Right. Rogers wants to kill Wendy, comma. So I locked him in his room. Okay, so in this case, Roger, whoever this Roger is, wants to end Wendy. Okay, so I'll lock him away. But if I add a comma into that, Roger wants to kill Wendy, so I locked him in his room. In this sentence, I'm talking to Wendy, and I'm indicating that Roger wants to kill indiscriminately, so I've locked him in his room. All right. So parenthetical information. Okay. All right. Now a few notes though on this. Right. Never put a comma between the subject and the verb. Now I said, okay, that's not exactly what I mean. What I mean is that instances like this, okay, where something like you have a subject like a gerund phrase, finding a new lead singer for the band, right? If you're not paying attention, you might think that that looks like an introductory element. So, you might put a comma there and then, comma has been difficult. That's not what you want to do because finding a new lead singer for the band has been difficult is the same thing as like, apples are delicious, right? You wouldn't say apples, comma, are delicious, right? So you don't want to do that here. All right. Now, when you say things like, never, right? You really have to. Okay, so never separate two phrases or clauses joined by a coordinating conjunction. What I mean by that is that, again, we want to make sure that we are thinking about like kind of on the level of parenthetical information, right? The waiter suggested that we order a Merlot and that we try the pierogi. Okay, so what's primary, right? That the waiter suggested the Merlot and the pierogi. Cool, right? Um, in the second sentence, we have the waiter suggested that we order a Merlot, comma, and that we try the pierogi. So that's sort of extra. That's on top then, right? The primary was on that Merlot, trying that Merlot. The extra stuff is that pierogi. Okay. Now, Sulgi painted his room, but not the hallway, right? Okay, cool. I had the comma in, right? Sulgi painted his room, comma, but not the hallway, right? Again, extra information. What's, you know, the first and the third example here, the waiter suggested that we order more low and that we try the pierogi, right? Again, you've just got subject, verb, verb, right? Sulgi painted his room, but not the hallway. So there we just got subject, verb, and then kind of direct object there. We want to make sure, though, that we don't just go willy-nilly throwing commas there anytime we see a coordinating conjunction, because ultimately when we do that, we kind of imply a subtle difference in meaning. Very subtle, but a difference in meaning. Okay. All right. So there we go. Parenthetical information. Again, very nuancy stuff. If you have any questions, of course, come see me. Bring some sample sentences, and we will parse, and it will be fun. All right. There we are.